Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm here with Eric Brewer, and we're going to be talking about becoming a better leader. Basically, what kind of got you to this level is not going to get you to the next level. Eric's going to share some of the lessons that he teaches and some of the lessons that he's learned along the way. So, Eric, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind, before we get started, obviously you're a pretty well-known guy, but for those that maybe don't know you, maybe share a little bit about your background and how you got to this point.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with today. We operate in really three markets. One is just basically all of Pennsylvania. So we touch each of the four sections from as far north, as far south, as far east and west as you can go. So from Pittsburgh to Philly, from the Baltimore line all the way up to the New York line, all of Pennsylvania and Maryland. Some of our stuff in Eastern PA runs over into Jersey, so we do some deals in Southern Jersey. We have just over 45 employees. 90% of those are in office, in person. We have a handful of virtual assistants and some folks in our lead management, marketing, human resources that work virtually. We'll do just over 400 transactions this year, a little mix of wholesale, rentals, and we do about 100 of those are fix and flips. I started in 2006. Had a business partner in 2006. We worked together for about 7 years. I bought out his shares of the company. So I've been operating by myself as the owner since, I guess it was 2014, 2015, so just shy about 10 years. And super excited today. We have, again, just over 40 employees, 5 full-time executive level leaders. So I get to function today more like a CEO or an owner than I ever have. My schedule is amazing. I'm not working 70 hours a week anymore. Sort of get to do what I love to do and the parts of the business that really give me fulfillment. And I've learned an awful lot of lessons along the way. And just happy to share maybe some of those lessons or stories with you and your audience today.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think I've kind of felt it too, right? Early on, you're the maybe not necessarily always young, but the young hustler, like you're hustling, and we kind of say that's a season, right? You got to grow out of that, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to kind of get the business off the ground.
Yeah.
And as you start to add a team, especially as large as you have, you start to add more complexities with more markets and stuff like that. You clearly can't do it all yourself. And so I know we're going to kind of talk about that journey today. So what do you want to kind of talk about, like phases of the business, like where people are at, and then like the leadership, I guess, skills you need at each level?
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of times when I talk about this, I've been through each of those phases, but I feel like we have a little bit of tunnel vision as we're going through them. So it's hard to imagine what's ahead. And I think maybe through like PTSD or something, we try and block out what we left behind. But yeah, I think when I first started, there was like these feelings of like rage where I wanted to get away from my W-2, and I had some great experiences. I spent time in the military and then the automobile industry. I was a salesman, worked my way up through management. I was just burned out of that. It got really, really hard. With the development of the internet and stuff, holding gross profit on cars got really difficult around the late 90s, early 2000s. Talk about being young. So if I was selling cars in the late 90s, there's enough evidence to know that I'm no longer young. And but yeah, I was just kind of burned out of that. I was ready for a change, made my way into real estate. And I think when I started as an entrepreneur, I was more like running from something than I was towards something. And the thing that I was running away from was having my schedule dictated, being capped on my income, really being controlled by let's say corporate. I worked for a Toyota franchise. It was family owned, but just a lot of restrictions on what you could and couldn't do and what you had to wear. And I've always been a bit of a rebel, and I'd sort of outgrown that. So I was just so ready to get away from what I was doing. That feeling of like, hey, I got to get away from this, with like the newness of being in real estate. I went from about an 8 to 10 year career in sales and in the car business to real estate. So, I mean, I had good sales experience, which certainly was, going to help me and was super valuable as I got started in real estate, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about ARVs and MAOs and contractors and real estate contracts. So there was like some nervousness and excitement. So I think the early phase of business for me, as I can remember, it was like working so feverishly to get away from what I had known as a sort of a corporate career and background early in my life, and this enthusiasm and excitement and a little bit of fear sprinkled in about what was new. And, that lasted for a couple of years until I got a couple of deals under my belt. We had some success, enough success that we were out of capacity. I couldn't get to every rehab project. I couldn't walk every new opportunity. So we started hiring some people. So I went from having to be a solopreneur that knows how to negotiate real estate deals and get in and out of contracts and hire a contractor, fire a contractor, estimate a renovation, negotiate an offer on a deal when we sell it, to now I actually have to hire people that can do that stuff and train them and support them and manage them. So I think the second layer of business that I recall was trying to get some leverage, trying to create systems that the business wasn't capped by my individual capacity, right? We could only do 10 deals a month early on because that's the only one. That's it. I could only walk so many houses a day. When we first started in 2006, I bought almost everything off the MLS. So, but I would have to walk and make offers on 15 properties to get one. So to buy 10, you can do the math, right? You walk a lot of houses to get 10 offers accepted. And then I'd have to walk the property and hire a contractor and build a scope. And then I got to go back to those twice a week to make sure nobody was stealing from me or doing a bad job. So phase two, I had to learn how to become a manager and a good interviewer and a good hirer, and how to hold people accountable. And that was a mess. It was almost like learning how to sell all over again, right? You make all of these mistakes and it backfires. And I hired some really good people and didn't do a good job of managing them and leading them, and I lost them. And I hired some bad people, and that ended. So, whether I hired someone good and I messed it up because I was a crappy manager, or I hired someone bad, I still was a crappy manager. So either one of those situations, no matter who I hired, it generally ended poorly. And, that phase is just like, it's like learning a whole new business again, because now it's the business of trying to hire and manage people. And then beyond that, you kind of figure that out, right? You get a little bit better at that, and you hire a little bit better people, and you have a little bit better process, and you start to experience what feels like scale. And I'm working 40 hours a week, and now we're doing 300 deals a year. And then we broke that. What I found was I got a little bit better at managing, but I was horrible at leadership. And I think those two sometimes get intermingled, and they're very much not the same thing. Managers manage things, leaders lead people. And I got good at managing, but now I had turnover again. Instead of once every year losing people, I was losing them every 3.5 to 5 years, which actually was harder because after 3.5 to 5 years, there's more of a relationship with that person. You've come to count on them for more things. Maybe they do things and know how to do things that no one else in the organization knows how to do because they've been doing it for so long. And then some of our customers or vendors or contractors have loyalty to that person. So now when I lost a 5-year employee, they would take some extra stuff with them, not just, hey, I got to replace that seat. So the fourth phase for me was like, man, I gotta stop managing and start leading. And then
talk a little bit more about what that means to you, like being more of a leader than a manager.
Yeah, I think management, and I think you and I will talk about this a little bit because you asked me what I'm passionate about right now, and that'll ooze out of me here shortly. But I think at the management level, it feels cold and sterile and mechanical. There's like this one for one trade off where it's like, hey, we pay you to do a job. The job requires this. You give me that. I'll give you a paycheck. Don't ask me to hang out after work. I don't care about your kids. Like maybe I'll ask, but I don't really care, just enough to get you to do a little bit of extra work. And it's a very mechanical, very sterile, very, um, it lacks depth and meaning. Like if you ever, when someone just says, that's my manager, it generally doesn't come across very warm. No one ever really describes a manager as someone that they have a meaningful relationship with. If someone were ever to describe to someone and say something like, well, that was my coach, or that person was a leader of mine, or if someone calls you a mentor, they've adopted a different opinion about you. I feel like you've had a different impact.
Yeah.
So I think like management is very surface level, task oriented. Leadership is like, hey, this person has taken my life in a direction that is better than it was before. And I have a feeling of gratitude towards them. So I know that's a little bit of a squishy description, but I think management is sort of cool. It's very much needed. By the way, I think every organization needs a balance of both. You have to manage things and lead people. And I think the stark difference is that management is very task level. Leadership is, hey, I have an influence over you that goes beyond whether or not you do the work that you're hired for. That person looks up to you. They will often seek maybe counsel from a leader about how to manage their personal life or their finances, or they come across a difficult phase of life or managing a personal relationship, and they'll say, hey, Mike, I know this is not work related, but would you mind helping me with this? So I think that's the difference between management and leadership. Is management typically operates inside of the confines of job and the roles and responsibilities, and leadership takes on this different meaning, this different layer of impact that goes beyond the office walls.
Yeah, management really just cares about the results, not necessarily the people, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. And how do you develop it? I mean, it's hard. Like when you start to get gray hair like us, you get a little bit of wisdom.
Yeah,
You got some arrow wounds in your back. You've done some
yeah,
things right. You kind of learn the I would say that most of my lessons learned have tended to be the hard way, and I'm sure you've got some hard way lessons as well. Like
yeah.
if you had it to do over again, like to get to that point to where you become a better leader, and it's a constant. It's like it's not. It's like there's not a destination, right? It's like you're evolving. It's the journey, not the destination, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what are some lessons learned along the way for people that are listening to this that are kind of earlier on in their career, maybe that want to make that a smoother path than hard lessons learned? I guess what are some key things you've done from a development
Let me
standpoint?
break it down into two. I don't think there is an easy way. I think I was probably given great advice at the age of 28 and 30 and 32 and 34, and it was exactly the right advice. But I knew better. Maybe I didn't want to hear it. Maybe I thought it was a great idea, but I didn't want to slow down enough to do that. Right? I think I can give them whatever advice I've learned along the way and you've learned along the way. And I think the only lessons I've ever really learned came with an arrow in the back. It came with significant loss. It came with, and I think that's the way, for me, part of my leadership journey has really included a significant pivot towards my faith. And it's amazing that literally every leadership book I read, whatever that principle is that I walk away from, whether it's Patrick Lencioni or Liz Wiseman or John Maxwell, I'll often read something in a book. I was reading something this morning in a parenting book, and there was some wisdom in there, and I highlighted it and I circled it. And I'm certain that I'll be in church on Sunday, and something from the main stage that the pastor says will directly correlate to that. So the one thing I've learned about leadership is one of the best leadership book that was ever written is the Bible. I've found so much wisdom in the Bible directly correlated to leadership. But some of the things, so I think that the number one fundamental is it will almost inevitably have to hurt and be painful in order for it to stick. So I think the words of encouragement I would give to someone that may not be at that level yet is embrace it. There will be situations where you'll have turnover. Maybe a partnership ends. Maybe you go through a difficult financial season in the business where your back's against the wall. I've been through those. Mind you, I started in 2006. Shortly after I started, 2008, the world melted down. I learned a ton of leadership stuff, right? Probably more what not to do then than to do. However, I think that the best advice I could give to someone is to embrace the losses and be sure to. The one thing I wish I would have done differently is taken more responsibility and ownership of those. I was very much a finger pointer back then, where, well, it's the market, or that person was a bad hire, or that person didn't do what they were supposed to, or they're not doing the sales training. And over time, what I started to do was reflect and say, how could I have managed that situation differently so that that person I hired was more successful, or that person literally had it this morning. I was so upset with a leasing agent that we had. There was like 7 things that I wanted done that weren't done. And I wanted them done in 3 days. And now it's 13 days later and they're still not done. So I was all ramped up to come into this morning and I was like 75% sure I was just going to fire him. Like walk in and go, we're done. Instead, I reflected and I thought and I said, how clear were my expectations? Is there 100% certainty that I communicated to this person that I want it done in 3 days? Or is that just what I expected but not communicated? So the answer is I'm not sure that I made it crystal clear that I wanted that done in 3 days. I'm not even sure I definitely said it. And there's certainly not an email to prove it. You know what? I could be out of line. So I came in and said, hey, what's going on with these 3 things? Turns out I did communicate it, but I didn't communicate a deadline or an urgency. So it was on her list of things to do, but it wasn't at the top. So I've gotten better at taking the blame for everything and the credit for nothing. It's a very humble place to operate, but it'll keep you in this constant. You had said it's not a destination. There is constantly feedback that you can use to build off of and reflect and find areas of improvement. So I think that's been the number one core fundamental thing, because it is a constant evolution. You get to level 4 of leadership. There's another, you can always go higher. You can always get better. You can always get more influential. But I would say the root cause of a good leader is their ability to reflect and take ownership of everything that happens around them, not just the good stuff, everything. We have control over more than what I think sometimes we give ourselves credit for.
Oh, for sure. And any advice? I mean, there's a lot of folks that are probably listening to this that are working hard, still working a lot of hours, still hustling, right? And so how do you have to carve out time to spend to reflect? Do you have to kind of be more principled with how you spend your time, right?
Yeah.
So to have that time to reflect. And so any kind of words of wisdom there to share?
The book Miracle Morning was a fundamental pivot for me. And what he talks about is like the impact that a intentional morning routine can have. And there's 6 things in there. He calls them savers. It's an acronym. It's S is for silence. That can be meditation or prayer or a little bit of both. A is affirmations, intentional affirmations that speak into existence the way that you want to show up each day. Visualization. Today I went through my schedule and I closed my eyes and I visualized how each one of my appointments and my meetings would go today. E is exercise, as little as 5 minutes of body movement every single morning before you start your day. He talks a lot about the psychological and scientific things that change in your body when you get up first thing in the morning and you move around. And then S is scribing, journaling. I carry a journal with me every day. I start with gratitude and I list out my priorities for the day. So You can do that as little as 15 minutes. Ideally, it's an hour. So there's 6 of those things and you dedicate 10 minutes. But you can do it as little as 6 minutes. You literally dedicate 60 seconds to each of those things. And I mean, if you read for, let's say, 5 minutes a day and you made it business books, personal development, mindset. I'm reading a really good book right now called 10% Happier. It's about the power of meditation, how it reduces anxiety and worry and all of that stuff. So I think a morning routine that includes some type of personal development with reading carved out, everybody's got 10 minutes in a day. It's a lie we tell ourselves, and I did for a very long time, that I was too busy.
Yeah.
So carving out at a minimum, start with 15 minutes and do each of those things or some of those things. But dedicating, if you to figure what's 15 minutes a day, 7 days a week, that's 100 and some minutes, an hour and a half. The average book probably takes 5 hours to read. So that means every 3 weeks you finish a book. That means 17 times, 18 times a year you finished a book. So in 1 year, if you read 18 leadership books, unless you're about as bullheaded as I was when I was 19, you should be a little bit better leader. You should be a little bit better salesman. You could be a little bit better manager. You could be a little bit better operator. You could be a little bit better COO. That's the best I carve out 30 minutes. Get up, start today. Get up 30 minutes earlier than you do any other day. Do those 6 things for 5 minutes each and watch the compound effect that it has over time. My son's so proud of him. I'm going to give him a shout out here. He's a college basketball player. He's on a full scholarship. He plays Division II. He's got an amazing leader as a coach, and he pounds into their head every day, little things equal big things.
Yeah.
So those little things, 6 of those, it gives me goosebumps talking about six things, literally 30 minutes, right? Just everybody can get up 30 minutes. If you go, I'm not a morning person, go to bed 30 minutes earlier, you get the same amount of sleep. Everybody can go to bed 30 minutes early. Put your phone away, turn the TV off, go to bed. You do those things, they compound over time. And as little as a month, you'll see massive positive benefits.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, in my experience for real estate investors and really any other entrepreneurs I know, they generally don't do things like dramatically better than the next person. Like they just do a bunch of things a little bit better. Like that fringe, those little bitty things can have a huge difference in your performance and your profitability ultimately, right?
Yeah, and consistency, like doing those little things over an extended period of time. It's kind of like, I don't know, I saw a YouTube video the first time someone introduced that to me. It was like this little hammer, and it had like this little tiny like ball peen on it. It just tapped, and then it showed like a time lapse video. And after like barely any pressure, but after like 6 months, there was this massive hole in this big rock because the hammer had such concentrated, focused energy going into one little spot. It seemed like an insurmountable task, but just that little bit of pressure consistently every day, every week, every month, every morning makes a really big difference over time. So yeah, you're true. It's never what's the saying that's the really successful people do the boring stuff longer and more consistently than everybody else. It's very seldom is it like this profound discovery or invention that they came across.
Right.
There's some tried and true habits of successful people, and they just stuck with them longer.
So one of the things that you talked about before we started recording was just how you're now really coaching your team and you're kind of EOSing their life, if you will. You're like basically kind of goal planning and success planning and stuff for them individually.
Yeah.
And that very much sounds like a leader. But just talk about like what you're doing there, and then maybe, inside of that, share some lessons that other folks can learn from.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I would invite you, if you ever go look at like the people that whether they work with you or for you or alongside of you, or they're your neighbor, and you look at like the people that experience true success in their life. We found, I read an amazing book called The Power of One More by Ed Milet. And shortly after, I read this book called Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly. And it was the combination, like those two things like ran into each other like a car wreck in the middle of the interstate. And what I thought is like, we put so much pressure on people to perform at work. And oftentimes as managers, we disregard the fact that they have all this other stuff in their life that they have to worry about. They have their personal relationships. They have their personal finances. They have their what I call being or spirituality, I think, is the relationship they have with themselves. Like a lot of times we don't pause long enough to reflect and say, what is the relationship? What is my internal voice saying? Right. And then, also their body, right? Like what does their physical appearance look like? If you look at like the top business people in the world, they're almost always in shape, right? It's almost like the better physically they are, somehow there's this tendency for them to be able to work harder and longer and more sustained, right? Like effort. So and Ed Milet's book talks about that. He calls it the core four. So I married those two together, and something I do now with all of our people is we invest in their personal life in four areas. We have conversations about their physical strength, whether or not they can run a mile or 5 miles or hike 100, and we help them set goals. It's a little dicey at first when you sit down with people, and then I have some coaching clients that I help with leadership, and I make these suggestions. He goes, I don't want to talk about that stuff with him. I don't want to talk about that stuff with her. That feels sensitive. But yet I've seen a direct correlation. I've lost about 60 pounds in the last 2 years. My ability, my cognitive ability, my clarity of thought, my decision making, my energy, my mood, everything that contributes to better performance at work instantly changed when I got in better shape and started exercising and eating cleaner. So I said to myself, I said, man, that'd be a great gift to give to somebody, encouragement, and support, and accountability. Because all of us in some capacity struggle a little bit with maybe our physical appearance or the way that we feel, or we want to be stronger. Maybe we want to be thinner. We want to look better in a suit. We want to look better in a bathing suit, right? Even my wife, she's in amazing shape, but every day she stresses about whether or not she can lose those final 3 pounds. And I said, man, how great would it be if I could give that to people, that support and encouragement? And then what happened if their performance got better? Man, it would be a great trade-off where we pour into them and develop to them and give them the support they often don't get anywhere else. And what if that paid off where they did a better job? So we started doing that about 2 years ago. So we do retirement planning for all of our people. I have people come in, CPAs, financial planners, they come in and they do workshops. We sit down and we develop a passive income retirement goal for all of our people, to where we break it down to how much money per hour they need to earn, invest, and save to accomplish their passive income goal by their retirement age. We set body and physical goals for them. They want to be able to run a 5K. I have someone that wants to, over the next 10 years, they will be 10 years older, but he wants his internal age to go backwards 10 years. So he'll be 60. He wants to be 40. Blood panels, tests like that, visceral, all of that stuff. Wow. And then their being, a relationship that they have, their emotional awareness, their relationship with themselves. And then we actually set goals for them and balance their key relationships with their spouse or significant other, their children, if they have some, and then how much time they spend with their friends. And we start at 10-year goals. We go to 3, we go to 1, and then we set 90-day start and stops for all of them. And our culture, which I thought was pretty good before we started doing that, it is magnetic right now. Our results, we get the same contracts and profitability with a 30% lower marketing budget. Wow. We get more work with less people. I remember I had to add all these admin people to support salespeople, do all this stuff. We've become more efficient. We go to the gym as a group. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have a company-funded personal trainer. We rent out like this 15,000 square foot area of turf at a local gym. And we have a personal trainer that we get anywhere from 8 to 12 people that show up 6:30 every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we train together. We go to war together. We push our bodies together. We encourage each other. And it's amazing how it carries over into the workplace. You see everybody walking around like carrying these big water bottles. We try and stay hydrated. So, man, we're an emotionally, spiritually, physically healthy group of people. At least trying to get a little bit better. Some of us are, further along than others. I'm like at the middle of the back of the pack. I'm still trying to lose a couple pounds and eat good and stay away from birthday cake. But that's my primary focus now as a CEO. I don't often spend too much time digging into individual properties or renovation budgets or negotiations. I am really trying to improve the quality of the life of the people that work here and letting everything else sort itself out.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Good stuff. Well, Eric, thanks for sharing your lessons of leadership with us today.
Thanks for asking. I love talking about it.
Yeah, yeah. So if folks want to connect with you or learn more about what you've got going on, where can they go?
I think the best place to keep up with me is I'm pretty active on social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok. Yeah, so you can look me up on any of those social media handles. We also do some coaching. I help people develop as a leader. We have some sales operations training as well. All that information is on my social media.
Okay, awesome. We'll add links down below for those that want to check it out and learn more. So thanks again for sharing some lessons with us today.
I appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah, everybody, hope you got some good value from today. There's this idea of the law of the lid, right? Is you're not going to basically be able to develop your business beyond your own leadership skills, and that's what Eric was talking about today. You have to continue to become a better and better and better leader so your team can kind of rise up behind you as well, so lift you up as well. So hope you got some good value from today's show. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.